What's up, y'all? Advance here. So, I did a video talking about buyer's remorse um, following the aftermath of the election. I also did a video leading up to the election about who had the better economy. Both of these subjects are going to intertwine. So, yeah, let's buckle up. The two main issues that came to mind, well, that people voted for Trump in overwhelming numbers for, was for the economy and immigration. On the campaign trail, Trump made a lot of promises in regards to the economy and immigration and how we plan on making America respectable again. America first, which means we're going to take care of American citizens and American jobs and American infrastructure. Okay. Let me start by saying this. Can you build a house on grass and dirt? Yeah, of course you can. It's possible. However, what happens when it starts to rain? You know, that ground gets a little soft and muddy, becomes more malleable, I guess. It's not as sturdy as it once was. So yeah, you could have a wall fall down, or a roof could cave in. You know, there's no foundation. If you don't have a solid foundation for whatever you're trying to build on, it's a good chance that it could absolutely fall. And that's what we're seeing happen now. You know, it's a lot of a lot of what Trump is doing is just, cutting stuff. He came into office day one, undid all 72 of Biden's executive orders that he's signed since he's been in office. Some of those policies also benefiting the people that voted for him, the business owners that voted for him, the farmers that voted for him. They got left holding the bag because they were expecting reimbursement for a program that they entered that was implemented by Biden and Kamala, and they were ultimately left holding the bag because because they were left holding the bag because Trump came in and just cut anything that was attached to his opponent's name, and anything that had his opponent's name on it, he was cutting it. And he told y'all he was going to do it too. I gotta say, as much as right-wingers and conservatives talk about Dems and liberals voting against their own best interest, it takes a special kind of intelligence to vote for somebody that's against a policy implemented, that's against anything implemented by the guy that he's running against, including the policy that's keeping you afloat. Same thing with Hispanics and Latinos. Like, a lot of the the illegals and the undocumented were here on a temporary status that was once again implemented by the Biden administration, and they Trump came in and cut it because guess what? It had Biden's name attached to it. That meant that even though you supported Donald Trump, your temporary citizenship status is now revoked. Get up out of here. I personally don't care if you stay or go, but I'm just saying that's what they did. They came and got y'all. And there's nothing that's more poetic about that whole thing happening than the guy with the Latinos for Trump shirt that that they got a picture of when he was in cuffs being escorted by ICE. I'm getting away from my point. Point I was trying to make is that when you just do shit without having a plan in place, or semblance of a plan, when you do shit and you don't have a plan or a foundation in place on what could happen if there is a blowback, then yeah, shit's gonna be catastrophic. And it's not really that hard to believe that it happened because he did the same thing 4 years ago, no, 8 years ago with Obamacare. You know, he tried to gut Obamacare, but they was like, well, luckily there was somebody in the House or the Senate that operated with more than 5% of their brain that said, wait a minute, you can't just rip this whole thing and just leave it at that. We gotta have a healthcare system or healthcare bill in place. So they took out a lot of the harmful elements, but kept the stuff that did work for Obamacare. Foundation. Yeah. You want to tariff China because you want to persuade more things to be built here in America. Okay. And I said in the video before about the economy. What happens when China tells you to fuck off? Yeah, that's pretty much what's happening now. They're going back and forth trying to out tariff the other person. 114, 125. Like, geez. And once again, this hits business owners as well, because there was one woman that had a lien on her house that, you know, to put into her business. She was expecting to pay $30,000 for a shipment because it's coming from China. Now she has to pay $200,000 that she don't got. So that stuff has to sit there. So she has like maybe 2 or 3 months worth of products. And, you know, if her business folds, she could lose her house. Secondly, we manufacture overseas because of cheap labor. Let's not mince words about that. That's how we can keep the prices of certain things low. So if you do want to bring jobs over here and bring over manufacturing, first you gotta, hold on. It's two things that affects the average American: wage, cost of living. So before you bring those jobs over here, make sure that the people actually want to work them. First thing that they always talk about is that they're working in sweatshops over there. Okay. Show of hands. Who's volunteering to work in a factory to make an iPhone or a shoe or purses or whatever the case? And if there is an American that does want those wages, you can't pay the same wages that they paid them over there. No, we expect to be compensated. Either that or bring the cost of living down. I've seen people say that Trump is a genius. He knows what he's doing. He's business minded. I've also seen people say that Trump realizes that he's not the smartest man in the room. That's why he surrounds himself with people that's smarter than him. And it seems like y'all doing a lot of grasping, trying to, you know, admit that maybe you voted for the wrong guy. And I go in on the right wingers, but no, left wingers, they got the same thing going on that side too, because I know more than a few times this was the reaction. Is this motherfucker asleep? But even though they knew Biden couldn't walk across the finish line, the whole sentiment was, hey, even if he can't walk, we gonna carry him. Hence why all the Weekend at Bernie's memes was hilarious. So the market, the stock market's been suffering. 401ks have been suffering as a result of all this tariff business, because it wasn't just China. He was dishing it out to everybody, even Canada. Canada had the 50-cent reaction. They was like, well, what did you say fuck me for? And then there's the video that came out over the weekend of Trump and all of his buddies in the Oval Office bragging about how much money they made, in a day. Probably on a bunch of put options, probably because they waited for the stock market or particular stocks to bottom out, and then they bought them when they was cheap. That's the name of the game, though. Buy low, sell high. Democrats are calling for audit because they want to talk about stock market manipulation. Now, be careful when you throw stones in a glass house, because allegedly Nancy Pelosi has the most impressive stock portfolio in history. Allegedly. Trump apologists are saying that it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's just the state of things. But then it's like, all right, well, there's people that's actually struggling now and can't afford this. And they're like, all right, well, then they switch to it's either you sink or you swim. But there's people that's barely treading water even before the tariffs. If your 401k is down, don't panic. Because eventually the market should turn around. Hopefully, we only gotta stay. We only gotta last for 4 years of this. But even if it if you know, so as long as you don't sell or cash out, you should be fine. But yeah, in short, all these business owners, they was so worried about a goddamn border that they didn't see what was being told to them. They didn't see how this could go wrong. Guess what? Y'all hated the fact that the left was trying to raise the minimum wage because a lot of businesses can't afford it. Guess what? What do you think is going to happen when you get these Americans coming into these American jobs? You know, they not going to want to get paid nickels and dimes. And if that is what you can afford, are you going to bring the cost of living down? I'm going to end by saying this. When it comes to that, this is what it all boils down to. It's what Trump said 8 years ago, a few years, like way back before he even decided to run. If I ever ran for president, I would run Republican because, finish the sentence.